Okay, guys, we are back. June 2022 Market Snapshot. Boy, are we going to be in for a little bit of fun today. If you've been following the series, things have been getting a little interesting over the last couple of months, and man, they sure did get interesting last month. So let's jump right in. A lot of stuff to cover. A lot of conclusions need to be drawn, which we may or may not draw some today, but we'll see. So again, our market forecast continues, and here we are. So same thing, Inland Empire, Inland Southern California market update. We're going to take a look at interest rates. Yes, they actually haven't really changed a whole lot. We're at about 5.5%. That's not much different from a month ago. So there's the update on that. Eviction moratorium is done. Matter of fact, I'll probably be removing this slide. The general impact of the moratorium is pretty much over, and it almost kind of feels like we're somewhat back to normal, although we're not. But at any rate, I added a couple other slides in here. There is this narrative. I stole this, by the way, from Chris Thornburg. So if you've seen his presentation through our market forecast stuff, that's literally one of his slides. And it's interesting because he stole it from Robert Shiller, who has a book called Narrative Economics. And it all talks about what the narrative, what are people talking about, and is that building a reality of its own? I really, really like that thought, and I've kind of taken that. So one of those narratives is, hey, we're going to have a large foreclosure tsunami. I'm going to show you two articles from DS News. DS News is a default servicer publication. I used to do a lot of foreclosures back in the day, so I've been subscribing to them for years. This came out, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago. Foreclosure activity increases in for the 11th consecutive month. So what is the message they're sending? We are going to have some foreclosures, okay? Fair enough. Maybe you believe that. I don't, at least in the foreseeable future, which let's just call that for the rest of the year. I don't see that happening. For a bunch of reasons. But anyway, so they post that, they post the headline, maybe it's clickbait, maybe it's not, I don't know. Same exact publication, the following day, delinquency rate drops to a record low, okay? So anyway, be careful of what you read, be careful what you repeat, be careful who you listen to, including me, okay? So if I say something that you think might be a little interesting, fact check it, draw your own conclusion and go from there. Same thing with the eviction tsunami. We're going to have a tsunami of evictions. Well, and again, very dramatic headlines. This is from the Los Angeles Times, I believe. Evictions equal death, all the rest of that. The eviction moratoriums end. There's going to be people evicted all over the place. Point me to a headline in any city where the eviction moratorium was lifted and we've had a flood of evictions. It just doesn't exist. But again, that was the narrative. So at any rate, with a lot of the stuff that's going on out there, I see narratives building. I see narratives building with buyers and with sellers and with agents and people in the industry. So anyway, be careful. I'll give you the data. You can draw your own conclusions. So here we are, Los Angeles County median price. Guess what? Prices are up in LA County. It's the entire county. Again, that's the 24-month chart. The 12-month chart, we took the trend bar off, but you can see a pretty nice little spike in median price in LA County. So that looks pretty healthy, huh? So what does that mean? $845,000, 12% increase in 12 months, 40% increase from 2 years ago. 2 years ago, 604, 755, 12 months ago, 845. So if you're just looking at price, okay. Pretty interesting, which by the way, this is a 12-month annualized. So as opposed to that 20% that we were seeing year over year, this is kind of slowed down, still a huge number, but at any rate, anyway, draw your own conclusion to that, we'll come back to it. Supply and demand, Los Angeles County. Okay, this is what's got me a little nervous. And this is, I'm building off of last month's snapshot. Let me take the bars off so we can see a little bit better. Inventory, red bars. We're seeing less inventory in April and in May. That I don't like. I was really, really hoping that we would start to see an increase in inventory in the month of May. And we did, but we didn't see it in LA County. Another thing that's got me a little nervous are the blue bars. Those are pending sales. We sold fewer houses in April than we did in March. And we sold a little fewer houses in May than we did in April in LA County. That is not the trend that we normally would want to see. We want to see what's kind of build up. It kind of makes sense because we've had these inventory problems, but this is not the time of the year where we want to see fewer listings and fewer sales. That is exactly what we saw. So, oh, by the way, I'm going to skip ahead. I'll just use this chart as my example. Interest rates have gone up roughly 2% in the last 2 months. Okay, these reduced properties that go into escrow, these are the blue bar, for lack of a better word, is buyers and sellers opening up escrow. Well, as interest rates have gone up, at least in LA County, those bars have gone down. I guess it kind of sort of makes sense. So now we're at about 5.5% interest rate. We'll see where that puts us, and we'll see how many buyers that removes from the marketplace as we move forward. But I don't like that chart. I don't like that chart at all. So what are we looking at? 14,332 houses, or 22 houses in LA County were on the market. 14% fewer, 15%, let's call it, fewer than a year ago. Ugh, that's not a great number. And 16.8% fewer than 2 years ago. That's even a worse number, because if you've been following me for the last couple of months, from the 2 years ago, we're putting that COVID tag on that. So we didn't have a whole heck of a lot of listings in May of 2020 because of COVID. Well, guess what? We have 16.8% fewer than we did in COVID May in 2020. I don't like it, okay? 4,300 houses went into escrow. Again, this is the blue bar we were just looking at. That's 13.8% fewer than what we had a year ago. And 25.5% more than we had 2 years ago. But again, that number's weird because that compares the COVID May. And we didn't close anything in 2022. Actually, let me rephrase that. We closed 24.5% fewer homes in May of 2020. But again, that's a COVID month in that month. So anyway, I'm not a fan of these. These numbers got me concerned. And it's building a narrative. It's building a narrative. Speaking of, what am I talking about with the narrative? Elon Musk comes out a couple of days ago and says he has I'm paraphrasing, but I have a bad feeling about the economy. I'm thinking maybe I'm going to lay off 10% of the workforce at Tesla. Okay, people hear that. Elon speaks, some people listen. Jamie Dimon, CEO of Chase, comes out and says we're in for a financial or hurricane, something to that effect. Things are bad. Whether you know Jamie Dimon or not, a lot of people listen to him. He's got some concerns, and a few other names which I'll leave out. They're building narratives. So anyway, we got to take that, throw it into the pot, and see what happens. Here's Riverside. So what do we got in Riverside County? Again, there's our price. Let's take the trend bar off. Basically flat. So for the entire county, I don't exactly know what that number is. I'll tell you in a minute, but more or less flat month over month, which is good. I like that. We don't need up. We don't need down. Flat's perfectly fine. So what is that? $590,000 in Riverside County, up 14.6%, up 45% from 2 years ago. So again, huge, strong price numbers, which, until we start seeing these numbers flatten or go down, we can't even have a conversation about foreclosures and distressed properties and all the rest of it. It's just not in the equation. So where are we with supply and demand in Riverside? This looks better in some areas than the LA County chart. Yes, we've got some inventory increasing. That's an absolute fact. I see it in my Riverside County offices. It was visible. I didn't even have to pull the charts. I could just see it in our daily stuff in the MLS reports that we run. So that's nice. We finally got some inventory coming our way. Let's take the trend bars off. But we pulled back in pendings, and we're basically flat on pendings. Better than LA, because LA was down on pendings. So Riverside County, at least from a standpoint of connecting buyers and sellers, outperformed LA County. Kind of makes sense. Price point's a little bit better. A little more affordable, I should say. But again, the listing trend I like a lot for Riverside County. I just wish we'd see a little bit more activity on the buy side. Is that interest rate driven? I think it is. I think it's a 5.5% interest rate that's just taken some people out of the market. I talked to somebody I respect today. He's projecting interest rates significantly higher, another 2 points higher. Yes, 7.5%. By the end of the year. We'll see whether he's right. If he is, we'll bring him in here. If not, we'll never speak his name. So where are we? Homes for sale, just under 6,000 in Riverside County, 6% more than last year, 17%, let's say, less than 2 years ago. Again, COVID. This is the COVID May that we're referring to, May of 2020. That was a low number to begin with. We're below that even more. 16%. It's tough. Even though I'm happy that bar went up, I'm not as happy as I would be because it needs to be up much higher. 2,300 houses sold, 8% less than a year ago, 4.5% less than 2 years ago. Don't like that. We want to sell houses. Obviously, I'm specifically talking to my real estate brethren. That's how we get paid. But at the same time, if you're a seller, you want big numbers on the buy side. And quite honestly, if you're a buyer, you actually might like this, because if you're a serious buyer and you want to get into escrow here, shortly, you do have less competition. There are people, buyer fatigue, they've been priced out with interest rates, whatever it happens to be. San Bernardino County, again, from a pricing perspective, let's take the trend bar off, kind of flat. San Bernardino County has been outperforming everybody, but the price said I'm going to cool down a little bit. I like that as well, very similar to Riverside County, so that's a good thing. Still 18.2% higher than 2 years ago, 1 year ago, and almost 50% higher than 2 years ago. Big, big numbers, a 522 median price in the county of San Bernardino. So where are we on the supply and demand? Again, a little bit of a mixed bag, but I'll take it. Again, San Bernardino County, I suppose, is maybe the high performer, right there with Riverside County for the month of May. Again, listings jumped, that's good. I see that. I see that in real time in my Redlands office. I see it in all my offices that border Riverside, San Bernardino County. Definitely more listings being taken. So I'm very happy with that. But again, our pendings pulled back. We came back up a little bit more in the month of May. So we did outperform May over April on buyers and sellers coming together and opening escrow. But I still would like to see bigger numbers. Why would I like to see bigger numbers? Because, well, I'm skipping ahead. 7% more listings from a year ago, 14% less than 2 years ago. This is the number I don't like, minus 7.2%. Fewer sales than 12 months ago in San Bernardino County, and basically flat from 2 years ago. Flat from 2 years ago is bad because, again, once again, that's COVID year. That's COVID May. So, again, the numbers are better in Riverside and San Bernardino County as far as inventory is concerned. They're better as far as buyers and sellers opening escrows is concerned, but they're still pretty soft. So we're all kind of wondering what's going to happen to this summer. Are we going to have a late blooming summer and we're going to maybe kick it into gear now and we're going to run through June, July, August, which would be unusual. Normally, August is not a great month. It's just kind of a lackluster month. So we're kind of in the season, and when we see numbers that are maybe a little less than we'd like, we get a little nervous. For those of you that are really paying attention, you might be saying, Lance, you did a Spotlight City of Corona about 6 months ago. You are correct. This morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, as I'm running this data, I'm trying to figure out what Spotlight City do I want to do. I went back to Corona for one reason and one reason alone, is I believe Corona is kind of a gateway city between Orange County and the Inland Empire, West San Gabriel, that maybe not so much West San Gabriel Valley, but it's certainly a gateway city between the Orange County crowd and the Inland Empire crowd. And if you live in the Inland Empire and you'd like to move closer to the beach, but you can't afford it, maybe you land in Corona. If you live at the beach and you want to buy a house, but you can't afford it, but you don't want to come all the way into Riverside or farther east, maybe you land in Corona. So I see Corona as kind of that sweet spot, maybe a little bit of a bellwether city. So what's going on in Corona? Well, we saw a price pullback in Corona last month. Okay, so what does that mean? Nothing, but let's check it again next month and we'll see whether or not there's any that's the first, and again, it's a smaller sample. It's only one city, but oh my gosh, Lance, there it is. There it is. Corona's peaked, it's pulling back, and we're at the top of the market. Well, okay, Corona pulled back a little here, 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 a little here. So what's going to happen from here? I guess we're going to find out. We're going to find out together. But it did pull back in median price last month. What does that mean? $747,000 median price in the city of Corona. 18% higher than a year ago, 42% higher than 2 years ago. But, big number, 18% appreciation. At some point, I want to stop having multiple digits in here. A single digit and a decimal point would be nice. 2 digits and a decimal point, I don't like. So at any rate, that's where we are with the price. Where are we with supply and demand? Well, again, inventory up. That's good. I would expect that, okay? I would expect to see Corona as part of Riverside County, trends in Riverside County area. So I would expect to see the inventory up. Also, pendings up. Now, that's kind of interesting. Inventory up, pendings up, but the price pulled back a little bit. This is median price, by the way. Could have been a weird anomaly. We'll check back with Corona next month to see what it means. But inventory is generally up in all our areas we're watching except LA County in total. Pendings are generally up or flat in all of the counties, San Bernardino, Riverside County, and of course Corona, except LA County. So we'll see. It was a good May. Nothing to get overly excited about, but generally a decent May as far as the numbers are concerned. This is the same chart for Corona, just isolated with the 12-month windows. So what are we looking at in Corona as far as home sales? Up 1% year over year, down 25%. Again, I know it's a broken record, Lance. You keep saying it over and over. 25% fewer listings than COVID May, than 2020 May. 2020 May, first month or two of COVID, down 25%. And those numbers were horrible. Even though the pendings are up, they're down 7% from a year ago and down 8% from 2 years ago. So they're better than they were last month, but we're still, I'm not happy with them, to be honest with you. So interest rates, so here we are. I keep leaving these charts up. That was August, September, 2.8. I know I could just do a chart and I wouldn't have to go through all these. 3% in October, 3% in November, December 3.1, no, January 3. So let's go back. So here we are, January 3%. This is what I think a lot of people are hung up on, and I'm hung up on it with them. 3% in January, 3.5% in February, little higher, 3 3/4. We get to April, different chart. I use an optimal blue now, almost 5. So we go from basically 3 3/4 in March, and we add 1.25 points almost, or at least a full point plus in 1 month. Then we get to May, and we're at 5.4%. All right. We get to June, drum roll please, stable. Okay. So in the last month, we really haven't seen much change. You hear a lot of stuff about the Feds doing stuff with basis points and all the rest of this, and tapering, and are the Feds going to put a pause on all these little things that people like me pay attention to? But at the end of the day, in the last month, rates haven't changed a whole lot, but they have changed in the last 2 or 3 months by about 2 percentage points. It's a big deal. It is part of the narrative that we all have to understand. And forget about the narrative. It's just part of the reality that we have to understand. So that's where we are with rates. We shall see. Very interesting times ahead. I will remove this slide next time. I already told you the eviction moratorium is dead. So I am done. Thank you for listening to and watching our June 2022 market snapshot. We'll see you next month. And any questions, you know where to reach me.